Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In this week's video, we are going to be all about noise and ways you can use noise within your tracks and within your productions to kind of elevate different sounds. Maybe you can use it for effects, maybe you can use it for drums, and at the end we're going to look at how you can use it to create a synth sound. So let's start off with something relatively simple, and that is using it as a hat. Now I like to do this a lot because it gives you a lot of flexibility with the sound. It makes the sound change over time. Every time it hits, you get a different sort of sound. And you can also use it by opening the filter to kind of add a build up and stuff like that. So let's add an instance of Serum 2. And we just have a 16th note for the MIDI. So it's just super simple. Let's turn off oscillator A and let's turn on the noise. We're all about noise. And for this one, for all of these demonstrations, for the most part, I'm going to use Serum 2 just because it's super easy to use and I can show everything on the screen. So for the noise type, we are going to head over to analog and we're going to use ARP White. I like this one, gives us a nice sound to work with when using it as a sort of a hat. And I have a little ARP clone up here, ARP 2600 clone. So now this sound gives us this, really low. So let's turn up the volume. Let's turn up the volume here. Now we've got a nice healthy signal to work with. Obviously we're gonna wanna run this into a filter. So let's turn the filter on. And then we're gonna go this little N to to route that noise through the filter. So now we get this sort of muted sound. We're going to want to let's turn off the filter for a second. Let's sort of shape this amp envelope, which is envelope 1, a little bit. So let's pull down the sustain. It gives us that sort of almost industrial sort of sound. Let's go to envelope 2. I'm going to take envelope 2, we're going to put it onto the cutoff and we're going to turn that filter back on again. So now we're getting this sort of sound. We want it to be a lot more percussive, like a hat sound. So let's turn the sustain all the way down and then let's start pulling that decay down until we kind of get in that sweet spot that we want. Let's turn down the resonance. We've got the drive and the fat all the way down. Now this just sounds like a robot. And before I said that it's going to change over time. So what we can do is we can use this random feature. And then as I increase that, it's going to choose different spots within that sample to choose from. So now you can hear we're getting different sounds each time it plays, which is perfect because then your ear doesn't get too fatigued. You're just hearing the same thing over and over and over. Now we get a little bit more variation. One thing that I also like to do is at the end of every 8, 16, 32, whatever the section is that you're going from one part into another and you want a little bit of a transitional effect, you can open this cutoff filter to kind of give a little bit more, let some more of that original noise through to add a sort of like a build up. So and then back down again. Super simple trick, super simple patch, but you can see with a couple of little tweaks, we can kind of create our own sort of sound and give it a little bit more variation to kind of help push it beyond just the regular sort of hat that you would hear. Next up, we are going to create a helicopter type sound. For those of you who don't know, I actually flew on helicopters for a good part of my pre-music career. Flew on a bunch of helicopters. It was fun, but it wasn't all that cracked up to be. So that previous experience does not help me at all creating chopper sounds with a synthesizer. But let's just get into it anyway. So let's turn off oscillator A and then let's turn on the noise. And for this one, we're going to keep it at that AC hum 1. So gives us this sound. Let's turn up the volume. Now again, this is a really easy patch, but it kind of lets us use an envelope to control the filter, and you can then dial it in to kind of get that desired sound that you're after. So let's change this from triangle to a sawtooth, and let's drag this over onto cutoff 1. We want just to be in the positive, so Option Shift to get us just to the positive, and we want the noise to be routed through the filter, and we want that filter turned on. So now you can hear it gives us this sort of sound. Turn that resonance all the way down. Now that doesn't really sound anything like a chopper to me, so let's go along. Let's change this to hertz. And then let's start to dial in this amount of the LFO rather, to modulate the filter. So got that there. If we turn that, we have something pretty close there already. So when it's filtered all the way down, it's going to sound like it's at a distance, and then as it gets closer, you can kind of open that filter to kind of give the perception that that helicopter is coming closer to you. Really simple, but you can hear how we use noise in a different instance by just using an LFO with the filter to kind of give us a different sort of style effect. Next up is another effect, and this one we're going to use a panning, and also going to have the filter closed down, so it's kind of giving the feeling that the sound is falling down. So let's again add instance of serum. Turn off oscillator A, turn on the noise. And for this one, we are going to use analog SH1. This is a little bit more bitey. So let's turn up that level. Now, like I spoke about, first thing we want to set up is a pan. So we can come across, we'll go basic, and then square. Now this is going to be pan to the left and then pan to the right. So we're going to take this LFO over to the pan. It's going to give us equal on both sides. So now when I hold the key, and we want to turn on the filter rather, and noise. Now you can hear that going left and right now. But we want this filter to also start up high and then descend down like that. So for this one, we're going to use envelope 1 rather, to the cutoff. And we're going to, actually, remove modulator 1. We're going to use envelope 2. Envelope 2 over, and then we pull that down, so then it just gives us the negative. We're going to increase the release, to increase the size so we can see it all, and then we're going to have this attack nice and slow. So now when we play the sound, we can decrease that attack, so make it a little bit faster in the closing of the envelope. And again, we can start to put on some effects. Maybe put on a delay. Let's half, and then an eighth. Increase the mix. And then maybe a little reverb on there as well. Really simple, but with a couple of tweaks, we've just taken a white noise going down to a panning and automating that envelope for the cutoff so we can get that automatically closing. Next up is one thing that I really, really love to do, and that's not just on my software, it's also on all of my hardware instruments, is layering in a noise oscillator with the actual sound to kind of dirty up a sound. So again, let's add, oh, not that one, we want to add Serum 2. We got our sound. Pull that down one octave. Really, really basic sort of sound. Change it to mono. Let's put that into the filter. And then use envelope 2 to control that filter. Just tweak that envelope a little bit to kind of get something. And yeah, let's just keep it as a sawtooth. Now, again, we want to add the noise in there. And for this one, we're going to use the where are we? SH1, because I consider this patch in my head, I'm thinking of it as an SH101 style synth. So we have our noise here. You can hear it's just free flowing over the top. So we want to feed that into the filter along with everything. And then if I increase this level past what I would want it, you can hear the noise with the sound. You can hear it's really bitey, and then I usually just back it down to kind of find that happy medium. If I turn it off, you can hear it's really, really clean. And now it has that nice attack on the sound. If I open up the filter, you can hear that noise, but it's not so overpowering that it just kind of kills out everything. Just gives us a nice amount of grit within the patch to kind of help give a little bit more life to it overall. And again, I use this technique on my plugins, but then also on the hardware synths to kind of give it a little bit more oomph. And the last thing is how to use noise into a pad sound or a synth sound. So we're going to add in Serum. We're going to turn off oscillator A. We're going to turn on the noise, and we're not going to run it into any filters. This one we're just going to keep at the AC hum as the patch. And if I increase that up, we got the nice sort of volume. Let's increase it even more. And then for this one, I'm going to use a plugin from Expert Sleepers called Spectral Conquest. Load that in. Now this is kind of the same sort of technique as if you were to use an EQ. If I just bring up an EQ, if we were to use an EQ with a high Q value to kind of just give us that sort of real sharp window, and then if you just sort of boosted it in bits, you can hear that sort of peaking out there. But the cool thing about this plugin is you can take everything down to 0, and then we can just choose the bits that we want to come through. So let's go with everything around a C. And maybe there. C. Maybe look up here, what else we got? And it's not going to be perfect, but now if I play, you can hear what it's giving us. It's just letting through those C notes. Let's see if we can find a little bit more here. Now we have a nice good chunk of sound there. Let's bounce this down. Pad C. And then let's close this. Let's just boost the volume just a little bit. Where are we? Transpose. Oh, here we go, gain. Just want to turn that up a little bit. So now it gives us this. And then what you can also do is go from this, convert to sampler track, note range, cool. Now we have our sample. Let's go in, mapping, put this as like a C2, put that across. Filter. And then we can put a little EQ on there. Take out some of the lows. And then one thing that I've been using lately is texturize. This kind of gives it that sort of the vinyl sort of sound to it. And then we can also put a little reverb on there. Let's change this so we have a little bit more. You can hear there, it's pretty cool little sound that we've made that you could then layer on with another synth or something like that. One thing that you can do with the actual sound, this is the bit that we've got, is if you start to mess with the pitch, gives you slightly different tonal values, and then we can you can hear as we go through and mess with the pitch. It's giving you a lot of timbres to play with to kind of find some different sounds that you might not necessarily find by just playing a noise or playing a synth or something like that. So that is about it for today. Hopefully you may be looking at the noise in a slightly different light and start using it more in your own productions. And hopefully you've got something out of this video. Hopefully it inspired you to create something, which is the most important thing. Until next time, see you later.